All right, it's time to talk about all the fun and exciting things going down this week in Reddit. And like I said, we got to get going quick.
Football is back.
Dude,
football is back.
This is, look, I love the games. I love the season. But this is one of my favorite times of year. You know, it's kind of like, you know, the big Christmas celebration at the end of the year or whatever, right? There's all the anticipation heading up to it. Then, boom, you open up all the toys. You're like, well, you know, there's other things. Like, and then, now it's over, right? Have a cigarette and move on. But this is that big anticipatory time where there's so much fun, so much action going on. Casey, you're coming this year to training camp. This is going to be an exciting time for you, right? And we've got some big news. The Redditors know all about it. We are credentialed media this year for training camp. Thank you very much to the Lions organizations for doing that. We will have player interviews and other things on the show, on the podcast, and you're going to see a lot of stuff that we're doing come out on the YouTube and on the website, writing a whole bunch of stuff coming together. So make sure that you tune in on all those joints and see it. We're going to do daily updates after training camp as well. So we'll show you those. It's going to be a very, very busy piece of time. And to help us out with that, that's why Sandman's here. He's joined the crew, Detroit Lions podcast, to help us get this training camp covered appropriately. And he will be on site with the Lions very, very shortly here. Probably by 2 days after, one day after this thing's out. You're going to see him bounce around in there. And if you're watching the video, which I always recommend you do on YouTube, check out his getup. He will be wearing that. You'll just look for that on site. You'll see how Sandman looks, right? This is a big step for us, guys. Credentials, real media,
it's crazy.
I mean,
crazy.
It's almost like we do real news.
They're really trying to convince you to wear pants, but
they actually wrote a specific line in the rules this year about wearing pants, so they're serious about it. I don't know. All right, we'll move in. Let's get talking about the Lions and training camp. About the Lions, not about us. It's official. Both Slay and Snacks will report in the Reddit. It says tomorrow, but that was today as we record this. There are no Lions holding out. They were, see that holding out case. This is from 26.2 Pipe Dream. This is pretty great news. I saw a quote from Slay saying, what are you going to do? He said, I'm playing for my name. I'm playing for my team. And I'm playing for this organization. I'm out here giving 100% and nothing less. That's pretty awesome. You like to see that attitude.
Yeah, I mean, you always, with a guy like that, you can't necessarily say that it's not lip service. It is, but I mean, it's better than coming out and saying, well, I'm just here because my agent said that I, didn't have a leg to stand on with my contract negotiations. So, yeah, I mean, it's better than being clearly disgruntled. So,
where's your thoughts on lip service, Sandman?
Oh, I'm a big fan of lip service. But I also read that Slay had mentioned that he had stayed in the Detroit area the entire offseason, and he didn't feel like he was apart from the team even when he wasn't at, mini camps and that sort of stuff, because players were coming by his house and saying what's up. So I do think that, for him, it does come down to money at the end of the day, but at the same time, he's got a love for the game. Saw some pictures of him and his wife at practice today. They both looked happy to be there. So I don't know how much more we can ask for.
Right. And I don't think there was ever any indication from him directly that, he was like angry with the team or that he didn't want to be a Lion or anything like that. And I think, Lions fans have a tendency to put those kind of things in their own imaginations and run with them. But
yeah, absolutely. Can you imagine? He's got a couple kids already. Can you imagine? I mean, his wife is gorgeous. She is quite an athlete. Can you imagine the kind of offspring they're going to have? The amazing talents that are going to be available from the Slay children. They are going to tear up the world. Congratulations to that family for having the gene pool to just dominate. God. Let's talk about both of them are on NFI, and there's been a lot of talk about that today. They're back, but is this contract negotiating thing? There's also the part that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. It was going on in the Slack chat though. Conversation about the Lions or the players not necessarily making the conditioning test, and not necessarily that they didn't pass it, that they weren't in shape, but they haven't taken it yet. it could be part of the contract. It could be limited, work in the preseason here early. Could be a couple things, but those aren't the only pieces. I would see is on day 2 and day 3. If we see some action out of them, or if they come off NFI, I think we'll see more. Sandman, what do you think? What do you think's holding out Slay? Is he got a torn ACL that we don't know about after doing the seatbelt buckle that Rogers is so known for?
Tore his ACL playing Xbox, But, no, I think every team wants to be cautious, and especially with potentially our 2 most important players on defense. Mm-hmm. You kind of want to get them warmed up and into the swing of things before you take them to the conditioning test. Because, Slay is never going to be out of shape. He'd pass that conditioning test, no problem. But then he also may go out and practice and injure himself because he isn't fully football ready, because that's kind of the point of mini camps and stuff like that, is for him and Snacks to kind of warm up to it. So I think it may take them a day or 2. But I think, I think they're both in shape. They're both professionals. They've been doing it a long time. I'm not concerned about this at all. I think it's just a small bump in the road. Yeah. And I hear, those are around now at Allen Park.
Yeah. We'll get into that a little bit. So Case, you're talking about 2 different ends of the spectrum here. As Sandman said, probably no threat or no difficulty for Slay to pass the conditioning test as a cornerback in particular. Not just Slay, but the cornerback position is the most athletic position on the roster, I think, without a doubt. Then you go to the other end where you talk about defensive tackles. They are the guys. They are the reason for oxygen tanks on the sidelines in a game. What do you in his case? You think it's a lot of the same? It's not like Snacks has ever been in a position that he hasn't been able to do his job out in the field really well. But a guy like that, maybe he does have some trouble with the conditioning test. I don't really know what all is involved. So where's your head on that?
Yeah, how many years has he played, and it hasn't been an issue? And I don't know. If there was actual like smoke, I would maybe believe there's fire, but this is pretty normal. A lot of guys start camp on NFI and PUP lists and have no problems. Yep. So until there's a report, until somebody with the team says, whoa, we're bringing them along from a off-season groin injury, or somebody stepped on a seashell, or whatever. Until somebody says something like that, I'm not overly concerned. Even if it's a few days, I'm not like
body surfing off of Machu Picchu, anything like that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. No, we're okay with it. All right, so those guys are in, and any comments further about the holdout case, or is this just a closed deal? We're done moving forward.
I'm just gonna let this one lie. Usually I
somebody needed a Snickers bar.
My own horn, but
and I don't think it was you.
Let it go. We'll.
I don't have the Frozen theme. Sorry, I'm dropping it in there. All right. Hey, one thing we just kicked off this week, you guys may be interested in. I know a lot of people are playing. This is our yearly fundraiser for the show that we do, the fantasy football leagues, and we're doing it. There's a decent difference this year. We have somebody different running it for us. We heard your feedback about the IDP, and that not a lot of people are into that. They're more into the team defense. We heard you. So there's no IDP leagues this year. There is a champion, intermediate, and beginner leagues. The difference is the entry fee and the grand prizes, right? The prize pool is bigger. There are more prizes this year in all the leagues. Beginner has the standard prize package for second, third, and the money. Champion and intermediate, there's 4 prizes per league, and it's 12 per league. Last year, if you remember, and the year before, we were combining leagues at the end for a championship. Nope, straight 12-man league. You win your league, you get the prize for first place, period. No other silly stuff at the end. And we're already going out. We got money and other stuff, but we're going out in 4th place is getting a prize as well. They're all getting T-shirts of their choice for the show. So, you've got 1/3 of each league is winning prizes. So when it comes down to it, Ash did the math. He's running it this year. If you guys know Ash Thompson, he's amazing. He did that fill-in show for us on his own. He's doing a good job with this, and he's put together a really good set of rules on the fantasy piece. You guys are going to love it. If you like fantasy, like I said, it's a great way to support the show, have fun, and have a chance to win some money. And 4 out of 12 of the people in the fantasy leagues are winning prizes. So it's a heck of a way to go. There's also a little something different. We're putting a little spin on it. And this is where Case is a local hero amongst the RNFL crowd. we're doing some pick'em leagues. And we got 2 leagues, and we figured we were talking about it, and it's kind of like, there's 2 ways that people will kind of want to do this. We're putting just one big pick'em league together where everyone throws in $5, and you get one winner of a bunch of prizes, and then we're going to give away shirts for the second, third, and fourth place. So you guys get a shirt of your choice as well. But whoever wins that league has a huge pot to play for. So there's a lot of value there for you. Their small batch league is, I believe it's 10 people, it says in the rules. And it's the same thing, $5 entry fee, but you have higher odds of winning. So you could do a couple of those. We're not going to put the same person in multiple leagues, but you can play multiple times if you want. So a lot of good fantasy stuff going on this year, and a lot of opportunities to win. And there's some pretty good prizes there actually along the way. So
you got to bring your A game if you're going in to pick them against me.
So talk a little bit about your pick 'em history, right? I mean, you've had a couple years where early you got a little bit in the hole, but you've
I just
pulled out every time.
The RNFL mods and former mods have been running a for fun pick'em league for, God, I want to say like 7 years now. It's been a while. And I win almost every year.
Wow.
This last year I tied for first. I think I technically had a tiebreaker, but I will just say that I tied, for first this last year. But I play a mean pick'em game. I think I ranked in the top 2,000 players a couple of years on the ESPN pick'em site.
There you go. All right, so play against Case. Show him up, please show him up. I want to see some pain on that face, not that smug look he always gives every year about his pick'em league. How do you do it? Go to store.detroitlionspodcast.com, and in the Pants Free Products area, besides the wonderful shirts and other merchandise we have, you will see the fantasy football registrations, the big ring there. Go ahead and click on that, and you can choose what leagues and what you want to be in, and check out, and the whole thing all secure and fully safe for you to do that. So thanks for everyone that plays. Like I said, it's that's our fundraiser for the year. The rest of the stuff is all just trying to keep the lights on, but this pays for the majority of what we do. So fantasy football, store.detroitlionspodcast.com, or just go to detroitlionspodcast.com, and there's a great story from Ash on that. Okay, catching on now, we'll talk about the Lions and offensive versus defensive drills. This is a story that Eric Schlitt put out today. It was posted in the Reddit by Fabe331. Hawkinson beats blanket coverage from Tavai, and a DB, for a toe-tapping diving catch in the back of the end zone. Brilliant way to open camp for the 8th overall pick. It really is. I feel great about Hawkinson, but I'm not really worried. But if this continues, defense usually wins the beginning of camp, and offense starts to come back later. Is this a sign that the defense has failed already? Case, can you help us on this?
Well, it's a sign that TJ Hawkinson is a better player than Jelani Tavai.
And I would absolutely reverse the draft order.
No, I mean, okay, so we're going to get into roster predictions later, but I mean, if you want to look at one place on the roster that is still you kind of cringe when you look at the players we have. It's linebacker. And if there's one area that I would not be surprised to see them, wait for cuts to be made elsewhere and potentially add more players to.
Quick question: was that grunting noise positive or negative?
That was not a good. That was not a good noise.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what we were getting there.
Now, even if Tavai, who has been playing with first team defense, which is another one of our notes. So I'll just, toss that in there, I guess. Which is good. That's good for a rookie to know that he's at that level. But then again, when you look at who else he's facing up against, it's like, Jesus, I'm glad he's playing with the first team, because if he wasn't, that would be a sign of major concern. No, all I really take away from that is that TJ Hawkinson is going to manhandle Tavai, and hopefully Tavai, learns a few things along the way.
Interesting. What do you think, Sandman? I mean, you were super high in the Tavai pick when we were doing day 2 draft coverage. Have you turned on?
I spent a lot of time on him. Yeah. No, I think playing linebacker in the NFL is hard. And that's kind of why we have such a problem with it right now. So I don't really look at this as anything other than, Hawkinson has good hands, has the ability to make a catch over a couple guys. He's not dropping the ball, which we've, had problems with. I read a couple articles that mentioned how seamless, everything looked for him, how easy it was. He didn't look like he strained to make this hard catch. It just looked rudimentary to him,
right?
That he was finding soft spots and zones. And to be honest, that all that really does is excite me. I wasn't super high on the pick at the time because I thought there was more value there, but now he's on the team. I never thought he was a bad player, and I think that he's going to bring a lot of value. We really haven't had a tight end on our roster since Anquan Bolden, if we're being honest.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong at all.
I won't argue.
So I'm excited about any positive news coming out of the tight end room at this point, and I'm not that concerned about Tavai at this point.
Okay, all right. Well, then we'll go with that. We'll feel good about it, I guess. So looking good with Hawkinson out there. This Hawkinson kid, I think, has got a lot to bring to this team, and you're right about him being the best tight end since
Bolden.
Thank you. God, what a great freeze! It's been a long week. I cannot wait to get deep into this coverage. He's really something. He brings it, and
into the tight ends.
Those soft hands they used to talk about. Do you remember? It was Fourier when he came in. They talked about how soft his hands were, but it looks like Hawk brings a lot more to the game than just Fourier. But those soft hands. Maybe he's been soaking in palm olive. Who knows? We'll see. All right, Patricia.
Animal Farm.
Bag balm.
Patricia, he joins training camp on the NFI. There's a serious issue here, Sandman. What does this mean for the team going forward? I mean, does this really bring us to a 3-win season, or what's the long-term effects here?
I'm a little concerned. I think that with his foot injury, he's going to have a much harder time sticking that foot up people's asses when they do things wrong.
Do you think his challenge flag motion is going to be impacted?
I don't know if he's going to throw another 60-yarder like he did last year.
Yeah, that was
he really stepped into that one, but I guess we'll have to see. It may actually improve things for us because he's much quicker in the cart than he is on.
Oh, fair.
He can go straight from the O-line.
He's not going to miss as many team meetings or.
Oh God,
he's going to be on time now. He doesn't. I'm kind of surprised him and Martha aren't riding on the same cart.
Oh, you're killing me. You guys are just murdering me right now. Oh my God. No. It's true. The cart. Do you remember? I mean, Case probably doesn't, but do you remember Sandman the days of Wayne Fonts where he would roll around in that golf cart with a cigar? He's yelling at guys, run, get moving, just cursing at guys basically to play harder, try harder, practice harder. And he's got a lit cigar hanging out of his mouth. I mean, it's got to be hard to practice with the stench of a cigar burning your lungs. Would you say, Case, or is that how you typically do it?
Well, when I the only organized sport I played as an adult was ultimate frisbee at Drexel University in Philadelphia. And at that moment in time, I was smoking about a pack a day.
Oh, that's good for you.
So I'd get off the field from practice and immediately walk back home smoking. And, I understand the concept Wayne Fonts was going for.
Well, it shows how weak players are today. They use those oxygen restrictor masks because they're afraid to smoke. That's really the problem, right? I think if they wanted a real workout, a pack of Camels would get these guys. You'd probably see a lot of sub 440s in the combine anymore.
Get them on those cowboy killers. Jesus.
All right, so there we go. We got Hawkinson. We covered. We were talking about Patricia. We'll keep an eye on this. He did say in his meeting, his presser this morning ahead of camp, that he's going to be careful with it and not working too hard. I mean, I really would hate to see the poor guy still dealing with that in September or October, right? I mean, that would just be such a distraction at the wrong time of year. And it's silly to be talking about a coach this way, right, with something like this. But the other question is, why didn't you get it taken care of in early June, right? Why is it now? And
weird,
just weird. So Hopefully, now we're talking about him like he's a player for sure. Hopefully it's not a sign of an underlying injury that he's not going to be able to come back from. So we'll see. All right, don't forget about fanatics.detroitlionspodcast.com. It's time. You're going to get your Lions gear. Fanatics.detroitlionspodcast.com. It's a great way to help the show by doing something that you were going to do anyway. They give us a little kickback when you use that link. And all the Lions gear, you want to start going college, you can do that. College starts a little earlier too. You get your Michigan gear, Michigan State gear, or some other rival school, whatever you want. Any sports merchandise, the low sales on Tiger stuff this year. Again, fanatics.detroitlionspodcast.com. If you want to get your Zach Zenner shirts or any of the other stuff, of course, store.detroitlionspodcast.com. All right. 3 Lions to make top prospects in 2019. This is an interesting story. And it was posted by KI Double, and it was from Pro Football Focus, I think. Case, was that it? Or Fantasy? But I forget it.
I don't remember.
KI Double is the person we want to refer to because he
it
put
was
in the
ESPN Plus with Football Outsiders.
There you go. Football Outsiders. That's the one. I knew football was in the name. Anyway, they're talking Deshaun Hand, Tracy Walker, and Tyrell Crosby are these top prospects for 2019. I can see Deshaun Hand. Tracy Walker's an interesting one, right? I mean, I have all the hope and all the signals were pointing to that, but I'm not sure. Tell me about Tracy. Tell me about what makes him one of the 3 guys on this list case.
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to separate the two because you have essentially the same thing going on with both of them. You've got 2 guys who were on a relatively low snap count last year. And so you have to ask, okay, so with an increased snap count, with that, being asked to do more is more difficult. I don't think that's like a difficult concept. I like to use Harrison Smith as an example. When the Vikings had to start asking him to do more, especially this last year, he struggled. He didn't struggle. He was still really, really good. I shouldn't say that. But like, if you look at his PFF score went down. And it wasn't because he was a worse player. He just had to do more. And if you have to do more, if you have to cover more ground, if you have to play more snaps, it's not as easy to be, all in on every snap. It's not as easy to impact the game in the short term in meaningful ways as it is to, when you're on the field and you're energized and you're motivated, like big time for one play, whatever, that kind of thing. So, I mean, both of those guys are going to have to prove that in their second year. Wait a second. Is Tracy Walker a sophomore?
Tracy Walker is a sophomore, yeah.
Okay, good. Good. For a second there, I was thinking it was his third year.
You freaked me out, right? I was is this a trick question?
No. But point being, both of them in their second year, they're going to have to prove that like what they were able to put together in limited snaps is a thing that they can reproduce in a great deal of snaps. Yeah. And that is no small feat. And trying to predict whether or not that's actually likely to happen, boy, that is difficult because neither one of them clearly is ready to make that step. Neither one of them is clearly not ready to make that step. So I don't know. I'm certainly optimistic about both. There's plenty of reason to be optimistic about both. But if you ask me whether or not, like on a per snap, basis, whether or not they're going to be able to match the impact they had in their limited snaps, I would say no. Over the course of a year, they might have more. They'll almost certainly both have major potential to have a big impact. But on a as compared to if you come in for 5 plays on every other drive, as opposed to playing almost every down, it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah. No, there's no disagreement there. What about Tyrell Crosby, Sandman? Where's your hopes? Do you think he's one of the top prospects for this year?
I think we will have to see. I think the offensive line is going to be a hodgepodge probably throughout most of the preseason, even until we get a final, see at what's going on. A lot of people projected that he could play guard, that he could slide in and do a good job of that, replace Ragnow at left guard with him potentially moving to center and Glasgow moving to right guard. I think if he gets playing time, more playing time, I think he'll do a good job because he did a good job for us last year. I think injury concerns was kind of what caused him to drop in the first place.
Sure.
And we'll kind of have to see. We've kind of been plagued with O-line injuries the last couple years. So I'm hopeful that if he gets outplayed, then that means that our offensive line is good. I'm hopeful that if he does show up on the starting lineup, that he can fill the role well and do what the team needs him to do.
Having a swing tackle who's like actually, serviceable is one of the more underrated positions in the league too, in my opinion. So just because he's not in the starting lineup doesn't mean that he's not a valuable member of the team.
No, exactly. And that's one of those things that doesn't get mentioned often enough, in my opinion. I think you're right, is how valuable it is to have a single guy that can potentially replace 4 positions on your team. And, that's a pretty important thing. And, even if he's not a starter, he'll have an impact this year for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, I have high hopes for all those guys. I think Deshaun Hand is probably the, and I don't mean to undersell the other guys. I just think that he's the one. He really performed at such a high level last year that next step, seeing him take that next is super exciting. It could we were talking about it. I remember talking about this, ahead of Snacks, and even after Snacks. Though I mean, Snacks was a superstar and kind of a stopgap, but we were terrified of that front 7. That was a real problem for this team. And now you look at it, and it's like this is a different kind of, this is a whole new ball of wax here. This is an absolute strength, and I think that line is gonna invoke some fear in the hearts of some NFC North rivals. So Deshaun will I really want to see him looking. So good spot for a couple breakout candidates. You think about if you want positions to break out, those are 3 great ones to have. Something like that happen.
The ability of the Lions to move on instead of paying A'Shawn Robinson will also likely have a lot to do with how Hand does this year.
Yeah. Did you guys see the age app thing that the Lions do? Speaking of
A'Shawn, God, that was fucking hilarious.
For those that didn't, there's that face age app or whatever it is. That's, by the way, stealing your pictures, but whatever. That was out there, and everyone was going ham on it and showing what they look like when they're old, or showing what other people look like when they're old.
Pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Better than I do now.
Yeah, indubitably more mature for sure. So the Lions did one of a various players, and Diggs was funny. He looks like a funny fellow, and he gets old according to the app. Stafford looks like he kind of resembles Favre actually when he goes to the ager. But they were posting the pictures of him, and then they posted the picture of A'Shawn, just a picture of him today. So he went through aging. It was really good. Very well done. Their social media team has been hot this year, man.
Yeah, one of the best in the league.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about power rankings. This is one of those things that is a vicious sport. You have all kinds of people putting teams in all kinds of different places. Some people that you respect otherwise are doing some things that you're like, what? And some people you have no respect for, you're like, well, maybe this guy might know a thing or two here, because you're agreeing with him. Usually it's that confirmation bias that you're looking for, whether you know it or not. So what we're seeing this year is the Lions are popping up on a lot of these pretty far down the list. And then we can also throw in the conversation. I'll open it up to Nate Davis's 3-13 prediction for the Lions this year. That was
29th on his list.
That was like, what? That seems a little goofy, uninformed. I'll just open it up. Sandman, first off, when you're talking about power rankings, you're thinking about Nate. Where's your head at with this team this year? Obviously, only one day of training camp under our belt so far, but we've seen some improvements in the other team. Has the rest of the NFL improved as much as the Lions have in the offseason?
I think our division's going to be tough. It may even be arguably the hardest division in football, with Green Bay potentially making some strides in their offense, changing up a little bit. The Bears obviously looked good last year. The Vikings, underperformed last year, I think. But, for me, it all comes down to the Lions' schedule this year. And we have a pretty gnarly schedule, all things considered. We've got the Chargers, the Eagles, the Chiefs, all of our division games. I've got some that I don't think look that bad, the Broncos, the Buccaneers. But I think it all comes down to Patricia and how he handles his team. And you know, any wins that he can eke out by coaching. Because I don't think the Lions are that less talented than any of these teams. I think we're on par, maybe even more talented than most teams in the NFL on paper. It's just a matter of getting that down. I think theoretically, you know, I could, if things go bad, kind of like they did last year, where we had a couple bad losses that seemed to carry over week to week until we snapped out of the funk, I could see anywhere from 6-10 to 12-4. You know, depending on how well we play against our division, hopefully Patricia can get that. I mean, if we can go 5-1 in our division, 6-0, then the sky's the limit, I think.
Yeah. Well, and we can talk a little bit about the first 4 games on this, or even first 5 games we're playing on the schedule at the Cardinals. It's week 1. We talk about week 1. It's fool's gold, right? About how a team is. Last year, we played the Jets, and that was one of the. It still burns in my soul. The JETS chant in Ford Field, that really still hurts. Power, you know, good on them for rubbing it in. I wish we could do that sometime. But that first game of the Cardinals, I think, is a toss-up. I think if you do it week 4, week 3, it's a Lions win based on how the teams are. But it's just always a toss-up week 1, so you don't know where that's at. The Chargers at home, going to be a tough game. They're a playoff team. Then going to Philadelphia and then the Chiefs at home. That's a pretty tough grind for the first 4 games. And then you're going out to the Packers after a bye week early. That could really hurt a lot of people's opinions of this team early. What do you think, Case?
Well, yes. I won't be surprised, you know, if we come out of that at 2-3. Hopefully it's not 1-4. But if you're going to, okay, so first of all, if you're going to put the team at, you know, 3 or 4 wins total, essentially what you're saying is that they're a worse team this year than they were last year. And that's so hard to buy. It's not like the team got a bunch of lucky wins last year.
Well, let me challenge that a little bit though, Case, because you know the other teams have a say in it too. So they've improved or gotten worse. So have the Lions improve less than the rest of the league, or at least the rest of the teams they're playing. And I still think your argument holds, because I don't think they've you know they've degraded compared to everybody else. I think they've improved a great deal this offseason, and there's a lot of intangible kind of things with your coach, keeping your coach second year, everybody kind of finding their way, that feed into that. I don't think that a regression in this team's record is in the cards based on how everyone else has improved. It's on our.
I don't think it would be reasonable to make an argument that the Lions were below average in the league in terms of. I mean, this is. I mean, that gets into pure speculation mode. But if you want to look at it on paper, it would be real hard to argue that the Lions didn't improve more than most other teams in the league. In fact, and if you want to talk in division. The only team who you could even make an argument that improved more than the Lions this offseason is the Packers.
And they got a coach whose name translates to the flower. Flower. What a name. Yeah. We would never put a player with a name like Flower on our team, right? Losers.
No, but what I tend to find is that the bigger companies, the USA Today's, the ESPN's, NFL.com even, they're the ones who will tend, there are certainly exceptions to this, to just take the easy way of doing power rankings, which is to how do you, when you say a team's name, how do you feel about them?
Right.
And when you say the Lions, it shouldn't be a surprise. And I'm not, it'd be, I know a lot of people get bitter about it and angry about it. And there are times when I feel that way. But I mean, in terms of power rankings, in terms of guys just trying to pound out, an article to get clicks, if I say the Lions and you say, oh, well, they're not very good. How do I, how much research do I actually think they put into the Lions before they put them at, Nate Davis put them 29th. I've seen them with some of these larger publications. I've seen them, in the 26 to 30 range. And I'm not gonna, it sucks that you can't be bothered to do more research, but I understand that's kind of the job you have. And that's my opinion on it, obviously. What I would tell you is that having, working on my power rankings, and I'll give you guys some insight into where those are at. Every year they're harder and harder, so it takes me longer and longer. I am working on them.
Do you think maybe you're getting dumber and dumber?
Well, also, yes.
Okay, just check.
Yes. Totally. So I'm trying to compensate by doing more research.
Not a lot of compensation goal.
But see, I have the advantage of just doing it because it's something I like doing in my free time. So I could spend as much time as I want to doing it. I don't have a deadline. I obviously I want to get them out before the start of the season, but like I'm not.
Power rankings done December 30th. Nailed it.
Chris will send me a message every once in a while, like, how's the power rankings coming? But he's not standing there cracking the whip, But if you look at like maybe some of the SB Nation sites, things like that, where it's a little bit more independent, a little bit more passion driven kind of stuff, then if you look at a lot of those power rankings, you'll see the Lions much higher. You're not going to find any of them with Lions, in the top 16, including mine, because they have to prove that before I'm willing to do that. But you'll generally find them in like the 20 to 25 range as opposed to the 26 to 30 range in those type of power rankings, where guys have actually, done a little bit more looking into, things like how teams shook out in terms of injuries last year, how teams immediate impact from draft and free agents, and whether or not a team was lucky or unlucky in games last year, those kind of things that, should fluctuate, how you look at how you look at a team.
All right. So let me employ, we've got some really new technology. Sandman's joining us. And part of the reason he's joining us, is for us to test out this new technology. This is the Sandman decombobulator. We're able to pull thoughts out of his head while things are happening. So during Case's discussion here and what he's talking about, we pulled this. The Sandman decombobulator comes up with
the bullshit.
So explain, Sandman, why is what Case talking about pure BS?
Come on, man.
I agree with you on this part. I think that the hard part is, and he talked about this a little bit, is the luck factor, right?
Yeah.
We were in a bunch of games. How many field goals went off uprights?
Ooh.
Yeah, that is also true. That is fair. That's a good point.
Like there was a lot of, like, you could argue that the Carolina game was all luck. Like they missed out on 4 points due to a missed field goal and a missed extra point.
Yeah.
That probably would have caused them to not go for 2.
We also probably would have beat the 49ers if we'd played them out without Jimmy Garoppolo, whereas almost nobody else had to do that. So
that's true. And then there's other things like that. Like
you could look at it a lot of ways, but
like the same thing, holding call on, the interception that Tracy Walker had.
Oh, that one pissed me off.
There's a lot of stuff like that that's hard to quantify. But I think that after last year, I have hope in this team because I'm a Lions fan. If I was an outsider looking at this team after how Patricia seemingly handled the team, after the Jets game, how they seemed to kind of fall apart, how the team didn't seem to have an identity, even with the additions that they've made, I might have a hard time with that. But I'm a Lions fan, so I don't really have that hard of a time with that. But, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I can see from a national perspective because, look, Lions fans, we feel burned. Think about these national guys who are putting their reputations on the line as they write these things. Every time they get behind the Lions, they get burned. Right? Every time it looks like the Lions are about to turn a corner.
It's because they wait until we have a season that's like 9-7 and 10-6 to predict that we're actually going to go anywhere.
Because it's a prove it thing, though.
Bet on us when we were low, they'd have a much better success rate.
Yeah. Okay. So your gambling strategy is a little different than theirs.
I'm just telling you, every time we have a low year, we tend to do better. I'm talking last decade, not like the last 50 years.
No, it all counts. No. It's absolutely true. I did see that, you talk about the luck that they've had. We re-signed the goalposts, and they've definitely lost weight. If you notice at training camp, the skinny posts are up. They're gonna have to put on some pounders there and widen themselves out to do that gap again. But no, that was incredible. The goalposts impact last year and on the luck of this team. I will say though, also we had games. I mean, if you look at the tectonic shift in how the defense performed when we got Snacks. And you then project that forward into the year, what he would have been for that team. I think you see a couple more wins on the board. And on the other side of it is we've said it a couple times, but let's not diminish the effect of Jim Bob Cooter and his offense. Mm-hmm. Week 1, they were telling us they knew the plays. The Jets were. I mean, it was the most predictable. And look, we like to think we know a bit about football, but sitting there being able to pick the play, Sandman, you and I talked about it, and it was like the topic du jour every week in the post-game show. We knew like 20% of the plays that they were going to run just by the formation, right? I mean, how do you give your team a chance? Part of that is masking what your intentions are, and that gives you that extra, that gives you some separation on a route for a wide receiver, because you don't know what route the damn guy's running, right? It gives you it affects a whole number of things. Just that idea, if they don't know what you're trying to do or what you're doing. So I think there's a significant change in both of those things this year, and I may live to regret these words and to eat these words, but I'm going to say them anyway.
I'm excited to hear them.
It can't be worse under Bevel than it was under Jim Bob Cooter. This offense, the offense may not perform. They may be player injury or something like else that affects it. But the actual offense and the scheme, I just can't see it being worse than Jim Bob Cooter's offense. His offense was pure hairy ass. It was absolute garbage.
I will say, every single person I know that I talk football with who is even remotely knowledgeable.
So just a step above the Facebook fan.
Right. I talk to all the former RNFL mods, things like that. There's quite a few of those guys. We've had a few of them on the show, like Skepticism and Survival, for example. Some of the other guys, whenever the Lions get brought up, they're like, "Oh, Case is going to come in here and be all optimistic," and I'm like, "No, not really. I pick them as like a mediocre team. 8-8 is what the record prediction I have for them." But they all even agree. The Darrell Bevel signing, while it was easy to laugh at because of the one play in the Super Bowl, is a good signing. I mean, there is a lot of reason to like that in comparison to what we have. There just is.
Okay. I won't disagree.
I was agreeing with you. The only area I'm disagreeing with is by saying it can't be any worse, just because it can always.
Jim Bob's offense was so bad. No, and I know it can, right? And that's psychologists give that advice to people who are going through the loss of somebody close to them and that sort of thing. Don't get to the point where you say, well, at least it can't be any worse, because it actually can be worse. It always can be worse, and you think it's the bottom, and it could be worse. So you don't want to put yourself in that position to get set up for another serious loss, right? But I mean, let's say it, in the realm of footballdom, that was a absolutely horrific offense. And then last year came along and we did it again, which made it even that much worse. It was terrible. It was terrible. Sandman, tell me I'm wrong. Talk me out of that.
I mean, there's no denying how terrible that offense was last year. I think, for me, and a lot of it has to fall on Jim Bob Cooter. He didn't have enough creative play calls. He didn't have a lot of wrinkles in anything that he did. They specifically, Bob Quinn specifically brought up that they wanted somebody who could adapt a game plan week to week, which is scary to me that they kept a guy on staff that couldn't adapt a game plan week to week. Right. I don't know any NFL coach.
If you want to blame Stafford for anything, it's that they kept Jim Bob Cooter an extra year.
No, that's a great point, Case. That is really a great point, because he's the one that went to bat for him, right?
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, I think, and Stafford should have a little bit of blame in that. I think he was comfortable, but also what was never really discussed was how Patricia coming in changed the offense as a total. Jim Bob was still running a Caldwell offense, but without Caldwell's backing.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard. So, the season where Stafford set the comeback record, that was all Caldwell. If you watch that season versus the season last year with Patricia, if we had a minute 20 seconds left or a minute and 30 seconds left before a half or before the end of the game, Caldwell would go for it. He had no qualms going, hard, trying to score in those moments. Whereas Patricia this past year, and it was one of my qualms about him, was that he was very conservative. He was more, well, we'll try one or two things. If we move the ball down, then maybe we'll continue to see what happens. But if they're starting at their own 20, he's going to try to run out the clock for fear of, whatever.
Let me.
And that makes it hard on Cooter for sure.
Sure. No, and I'm with you, but I'm gonna say that I'm not looking at Patricia there, because so many games that I went to, Patricia was completely uninvolved with the offense in game. He was down talking to the defense. He was doing everything. Play calls were going in. I was watching him on a number of plays, and and I think this is partially, I think there's a couple things at play here, but he wasn't involved because I think Jim Bob Cooter wasn't his guy, and he didn't want him. Stafford said he wanted him, and he's like, here you go. Now go make it work. And it was just like it's on you.
I completely agree.
And that shows a couple of things. One, people who think he's on the hot seat, I don't think that's the case. I think this is part of a long-term plan, and it's part of a long-term trade. They want to win now. Everybody wants to win now, right? But they also recognize that promise of this is a win now team. Remember, Jim Caldwell said that, and they were a win now team. They just wound up kind of falling back to a win and lose about the same amount now team. He was disinterested because it was sink or swim, Cooter. Just make it work, and that's what they looked at. The other thing is, Jim Bob Cooter was creative with the offense, but he was creative when it didn't matter, right? When the game was lost, or it was just, that's when it was like, okay, Stafford, call your own plays. I know he didn't say that, but that's when things started actually happening. Those comebacks the year before last that were just so amazing. It's when Cooter just threw shit to the wind and didn't follow his natural instincts in his game. But and then it mattered because Stafford was going through these late game heroics, and these guys were pulling things together. I just think that going back to the piece of the confidence that Patricia had with not being involved and letting his offensive coordinator and his quarterback put that offense together and run it, gave him a chance to concentrate on some of the other things that are important, but shows, again, that confidence that this is a long-term thing. He's not getting fired this year. I mean, if they went 0-16, it's a different topic, right? It's a different thing to talk about. If Nate Davis is right and they go 3-13, definitely a different conversation. But I would even bet if they match last year's record, but show how things have improved otherwise. The record isn't the only thing you evaluate when you look at these guys. I think that he'd be absolutely fine, and Quinn is absolutely fine because they have a true plan and a true vision. And I will go back. People always talk about the Patriots way, and I hate that kind of thing. But they definitely are kind of indicative of what you can look to for some examples of what to expect with the team. And that team has been built with a long-term record and a long-term performance in mind. The only player from when they won their first Super Bowl in this dynasty period to now that's won all the Super Bowls of that team is Tom Brady. They've done it with completely different rosters otherwise. There's something to tell you that they think long-term, they play it long-term, they build it long-term. You're never going to be able to build a team in 1 year and then maintain that over a long period of time. So that's just my thinking on that.
I agree.
We're not fighting this week, Case. Darn it. All right. Let's okay, we'll move on from power rankings. Looking forward to your power rankings, Case. They're awesome every year. I love them.
Can I tell you guys where they're at right now?
Oh, as long as it's not too personal.
Well, yeah, sure. No, I'm working on them. Like I said, they're coming along. Just a few points of note that I've kind of noticed. There's a few teams, and maybe this is the only thing I'll tell you guys right now. There are 3 teams right now that I pegged for biggest regression. One of them isn't going to surprise you at all, and that's the Bears. Yeah.
No surprise.
But I mean, I also think that a lot of people agree with that. I don't think that's like a unique to me and my bias situation. Another is the Rams.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we talked about that last week, and I agree. They are ripe for regression.
Their offensive line, they lost people. They lost a lot on their defense, and while their defense wasn't, the main reason they were winning games anyway, if you make it worse, it's worse. They lost Sue. They lost their safety. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. And a couple other guys. They lost Saffold and another offensive lineman. They're going to be.
That's where the big Ash and the Slack team were talking about that. Patreon.com/DetroitLions podcast. We're talking about that very, very in particular thing. We're going to learn about a lot about Jared Goff.
And he was not good under pressure at all. He was not good under pressure. So if the pressure increases on him, it's not a good situation. Andrew Whitworth is 30-7. And the dude is incredible. I hope he goes to the Hall of Fame, but he's 37 and God, how much longer can you keep up playing that high level at left tackle? So,
I think Sandman could do it.
Probably.
In practice.
So they're number 2. The other one is the Steelers. Because I looked at their wide receiver core, their receiving core in general. It's fucking garbage. It's garbage.
Wow.
I know Juju Smith-Schuster is a star. Okay, like I'm not arguing with that.
Like
but all of a sudden he has to be the number 1 when he's never had to be the number 1. And past him, they have Dante Moncrief is their second best wide receiver.
It's like us with Calvin
Jesus
Johnson.
Christ.
Right? You have one guy, and
it's not like he's on Calvin Johnson's level.
Right.
They have Vance McDonald, who's a decent tight end receiving, but they lost Jesse James to us, and there's no indication whatsoever they have another tight end who can catch a pass either.
Yep.
So, God, they are, and Big Ben is he's at the end. I mean,
this is his last year.
He's at the end. He's not quite at the end like Eli's at the end, but he is at the end.
This is his last year. I think this is Big Ben's last year. So I think he is at the end like Eli's at his end.
So anyway, I'll just give you guys that tidbit to soak up, and I'll hopefully in the next week or two I'll have the actual power rankings out.
Soaking it. All right. Hey, let's really quick tap on this training camp party. It's our 3rd annual training camp party. Year 1, Dan Miller came out, joined us. It was a great time. Year 2, Jim Brandstatter came out. Another great time. It's getting bigger and bigger every year. This year, it's August 2nd. What did the Lions do to us, Sandman? What did they do to us?
I'm sorry, you cut out there for a second on my mic there.
Oh, that's okay. I'll tell you what they did to us. They planned the Family Fun Fest on the same night our party was.
Yes.
They threw that little curveball at us this week, which is okay. We were talking about moving it, but we'd sold a bunch of tickets, and we're like, how do we get people to move with it? And we finally came down with the idea that we're keeping it because it's really 2 different audiences. Family Fun Fest at Ford Field is a great time, to take the family out and do great family kind of things. Our party is a great time to come out and have some adult beverages, some adult sodas or whatever else, and have a banging good time. So we're keeping our date. Dan Miller, he said he was originally on the docket to come and join us. He still is. He told us that he's got to go do that event, but as soon as it's over, he's hopping in his private jet and flying in and doing his best to get there. I'm looking at the timing. He should be able to get out of there in time to join us. So Dan Miller will. I'm saying he will be there. He came to me out of nowhere. He said he really wants to be there, and he's going to bust his rear end to do it. So Dan, one of the greats in Detroit, you're really cool. So I'm expecting that he'll make it towards the end.
It really is a great time, though. And, I made a tweet about it a couple days ago, I think, and I mentioned that it's Twitter in real life. And really, that's kind of what it is. Yeah. Last year, it was fantastic. Basically, the whole Pride of Detroit crew was out there. Brandy was out there. I was out there. Sweta Patel. I'm sure all of you guys know Sweta Patel.
Yep. Lions Wire. All those guys.
Yep. Lions Wire. Yep. Brett from PFF was there.
Yep. He's been there both years, too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you want to meet people in real life, talk about Lions, with people that know what they're talking about, or at least can pretend that they know what they're talking about, like us. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic outing.
Absolutely. To get all those people together in one place, have a drink, and look, I've heard from a couple people who said I would love to make it, but I feel awkward jumping into a crowd of people that I don't know. right? And I don't really have anyone to go with.
Hey, believe me, I get that. We'll have a few drinks.
Yeah, Case is flying, or a couple thousand miles to do that. But besides all that, it is exactly like that. It's Twitter. It's a bunch of people who it's almost like speed dating without having to. Well, with the end result, well, I don't know, whatever. But it is. I mean, you just meet people and have a great time and talk it up and go from person to person. And everybody is just so great. It's a great time. So the training camp party, August 2nd in Commerce Township. I gotta keep talking about the guests. Dean Blandino is flying out, and we're going to do a Q&A. So you can get your questions. You can directly bring your questions in, and it'll be part of the podcast we record there. And ask Dean Blandino anything you want. Dean has become an absolute wonderful guy. Well, he was a wonderful guy. He's just been
throw anything but your panties at him, we're gonna have to kick you out.
Yeah, exactly. He's and I'd call him absolutely a personal friend at this point. It's really funny how we've gone from hashtag Fire Blandino to where things are now. But he's just a genuinely good guy. We put together a great video that we're going to premiere as well with Dean in the city of Detroit. You can see the trailer on our YouTube channel now to get a feel for what it is. We're going to premiere that there. You guys are going to love it. It's absolutely. Did you look at the link I sent you, Case? The little hidden backdoor link?
For what? For what?
For the video. Look in your Slack. Look in your Slack.
Oh shit. Yes. No, I'm sorry. I saw it last night right before I fell asleep. So I'll check it out.
Oh, you didn't?
I saw that it existed. I haven't watched it yet.
I'll get it to you too, Sandman. I know you saw a couple of little things, but it's absolutely fabulous. I think you guys are going to really love that. We're premiering that there. Q&A with Dean. We're going to record a live show. You're part of the live audience. And you full access. You'll be able to talk to him. It's beyond just the show. You'll be able to interact with him on a one-on-one basis. These guys are really, really cool people, and I think you'll get that sense as well. You talk about redemption arc. Dean is the king of the redemption arc in Detroit, I think. And we have another one we're working on, so we'll talk about that as we get closer to it. Riz will be there. Sandman will be there. Case is flying in to be here for the first time. This is his first time coming. I'll be there. It's all in Commerce Township at the Uptown Grill. Uber your way in and out if you're worried about the drive. It's not that bad, but it's absolutely worth it. Dinner, we got pizza, we got all the soft drinks you can drink, the whole thing. It's $30 to cover all the food and all that. It's just in the room charge and everything. Last year we came in $5 less and lost money. So I appreciate having people over for a party, but I can't pay for the whole dang thing. So we gotta get you. So the tickets, party.detroitlionspodcast.com. Go there, get your tickets, sign up, and do this thing. We got the wristbands and everything else at the door for you. There's door prizes. Fanatics is throwing in a bunch of Fanatics fan cash that you're going to be able to use to buy stuff. We've got some Lions merchandise. We've got some shirts that we're giving away. I got a Billy Sims signed football again that will be given away. And you might see some things from Dean, who I know Riz. Sandman. I know you're familiar with some of the prizes that Dean brings, eh? That beautiful ball you got in your house right now.
Oh yeah. I was lucky enough to win the Super Bowl football during the charity events you guys put on, and things fantastic. So I'm looking forward to some more opportunities.
Very cool stuff. So again, party.detroitlionspodcast.com. I cannot stress enough how much fun that is. There is a limited room, so just get your tickets and get it done, and join us. It is from 6 to 10 p.m. August 2nd, and it's a riot. It's just a really, really good time. Uptown Grill in Commerce Township, and if we want, use the subreddit. Actually, it's a great place if you guys are looking to room together. If you want to share a hotel, there's a bunch of them that are close there. Transportation, you want to arrange that stuff together. That's a great place to do it. People will do that. One other piece that is somewhat related. On August 1st at the training facility in Allen Park, it's Zach Zenner Day. We'll all be there. We're going to have our Zach Zenner shirts on. Look for us. We're going to do lunches and stuff at the after training camp as well. So find us. We're you can see us in the YouTube channel. You know what we look like. We'll be wearing our podcast shirts and Zach Zenner shirts and all the other stuff, especially on August 1st. And come hang with us. We'll go to lunch. We're doing. Whoever wants to come, we'll go to lunch together. There's a couple places I have in mind. I used to work down right across the street from the training facility, so there's some places that I remember that I'd love to hit and bring a group of people to, and we could have a great old time. And last piece on that is I saw one of our I Love Zach Zenner shirts get signed by Zenner today on the first day of training.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Mary Lamus. Good job, Mary. Looking good out there with that shirt. And That's cool of him to do that. So it's the radar and we're on it. All right, let's move on. Justin Rogers. You guys may have heard him. He's a guy that is madly in love with Case. Enjoys everything that Case does and brings to this world. No,
we invited him to the party.
Yeah.
Good.
He's a great guy. A lot of fun. He's got some early roster projections. And Casey, you tended to think it was garbage as usual. Everything that comes from Rogers is trash. Is what you said, I think, before we started, right?
It's entirely untrue.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Okay, no, actually, no. I did for those of you not in the know, we're just making fun. Rogers and I are besties now. But no, he put out the roster predictions. We'll run through it real quick. If there's anything that stands out, we can chat about it real quick. First of all, 2 quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford, Tom Savage. Nothing to really discuss there. I don't think the writing was on the wall as soon as Connor Cook got released. So, running backs, he has Kerryon Johnson, C.J. Anderson, Theo Riddick, Zach Zenner, and Ty Johnson. I can't really argue with that. The one question mark being he has Nick Bowden out, which is I mean it everybody has loved Nick Bowden since we drafted him, and the injury sucked. I can't really argue with the thought that he might not make it, and he's still practice squad eligible. So, I mean, there's always that.
He was out there today leading the way for C.J. Anderson, and you talk about a couple sides of beef heading your way, right? I mean, that's a lot of meat that you got to stop. And to see him out there playing on day one, I don't know. Yep. That
he just has a lot of ground to make up. Yeah. He has a lot of ground to make up. That is like the worst timing for an injury for a guy in his position, because it's not a premium position. It's a position where if you're not making progress with the team, you're not. There isn't a reason to. So I mean, he's in a tough position. If he wins that role, if he wins, if they end up only keeping, I have a hard time seeing them dropping any of the other 5 running backs, with the possible exception of if they cut Riddick for cap reasons. I have a hard time seeing, anybody him making it over Zenner or Ty Johnson. Stranger things have happened.
Sandman, we put Bowden on practice squad. How big the risk do you think is that we lose him to another team?
I think it kind of depends. Not a lot of teams run fullbacks full time, but I will say that while he himself is kind of he's a fullback, right? There's nothing really too much to say about fullbacks. He was involved in 2 of the best running back seasons ever. He was involved in that directly.
Yeah,
I think that putting him out there is a little bit of a risk. If we're going to run a fullback, I think he should make the roster. If we're not going to run a fullback, then we should cut him, because there's no why keep a guy like that,
right?
I think carrying 6 running backs feels bad, but it depends on his value on special teams. I guess we'll have to see during the practices. Zenner has a ton of special teams value. Ty Johnson has a ton of special teams value. The only person that really is kind of odd man out, like Kay said, is Theo Riddick.
Yeah.
But he has value to us. It's just kind of a matter of how much value do we actually see in him. He didn't see nearly as much action last year, with kind of the change in the way that Patricia wanted to play football, a little bit more hard-nosed, a little bit more, whatever. Theo really didn't fit in. I was kind of shocked that he hasn't been cut yet, but I guess we'll see. I don't want to lose Theo because of what he's done for us, but it's hard. I would be nervous about losing Nick Bowden.
Yeah.
Yep. So, okay, wide receivers, he's got 5. Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola, Jermaine Kearse, and Andy Jones. The only one of there being a question mark at this point is Andy Jones. And then the ones that are being, left out of this is where the interesting stuff is. You've got Dantez Alexander, Travis Fulgham, Tommy Lee Lewis, Brandon Powell. All 4 of those guys are guys that we have had for. I mean, Travis Fulgham being a rookie, they can attempt to put him on the practice squad, but I'd be a little bit surprised if they put him on the practice squad if he didn't get snatched right away.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 6th round pick, right? So he's not super high, but I mean, especially if I'm an NFC North team that needs a wide receiver, I take a flyer on a guy that knows somebody else's playbook.
Yeah, and if somebody gets hurt, as Justin said, if one of those 5 guys gets hurt and they go on the IR list or anything, Fulgham is probably the first one back in.
Sandman's picture on this video is so unnerving to me. His eyes are just like looking at me like, what? Every time I look up at him, I'm like, what would I do?
He has us keeping 4 tight ends. Now, let me. This will jump back a little bit. He has T.J. Hockenson, Jesse James, Logan Thomas, and Isaac Nauta, which I'm never sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
No.
But he has Isaac as a potential H-back, sure. Potential fullback. Like if they want to run it occasionally, he's the guy who could do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So
with Bevel, I mean, look, everyone talks run first. If you're thinking run first, we've talked about what it really means, right? But if you're thinking that you are truly committing to a run heavy offense, a fullback does make sense in a package like that. So we'll see how that plays.
Okay, so we got 9 on the offensive line. We've got Decker, Glasgow, Ragnow, Wiggins, Wagner, Crosby. All those obvious. Bauchi, obvious. Then Ryan Pope and Joe Dahl. I think Joe Dahl is almost a lock.
And we saw Decker, Wiggins, Ragnow, Glasgow, and Wagner, thank you, as the 5 starters in the opening of camp today from left to right. Again, Ragnow at center. It looks like he's going to be there. I don't think there's any question he's going to play center for the team. But that looks like that's the starting 5.
Yeah, I don't know much about Ryan Pope. The only guy left in that group that I actually am vaguely, familiar with his work in terms of potential is Bo. Ben Schwell.
That's like me trying to say Arawariye on draft day. Between the 100 beers and then.
Anyway, he was the undrafted free agent that we picked up that everybody was hyped about. He could easily be a practice squad addition. There's probably a couple of these guys who could be practice squad additions. I'm just not sure.
A couple guys that are going to hurt themselves last day of camp.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have any major arguments with any of that.
Okay.
That'll be a case where I think the bottom of that will get sorted out through training camp, but I can't really argue positions at this point. We flip over to the DL. Trey Flowers, Romeo Aquara, Damon Harrison.
Wait, we got a guy with Flower in his name?
Deshaun Hand.
3 and 13 confirmed.
Austin Bryant, Darius Kilgo are the guys he's got. Kilgo is probably the one most likely out, possibly, to a guy like PJ Johnson, who we drafted in the 7th.
Mm-hmm. And he was NFI today as well, by the way. That doesn't
right. Kilgo was. Yeah. So that doesn't help him. But I don't necessarily, that 7th spot there could go to any of the, okay, so we've got Eric Lee, Mitchell Lowen, Jonathan Wynn, John Atkins, PJ Johnson, Ray Smith, Kevin Strong. I'm not sure that any of those guys is like a clear,
Mm-hmm.
There isn't a clear guy in any of that. None of those guys other than PJ are guys we drafted. So it's more of just like a who puts in the most work kind of situation.
Right.
The linebackers one, and as I mentioned earlier, this kind of makes me doesn't make me happy. Jared Davis, Christian Jones, Devon Kennard, Jelani Tavai. Those are your 4 main guys.
Right.
Kennard being primarily a edge or off edge, whatever you want to call him, primarily a pass rusher. The other 3 being off ball, although all 3 will likely see work rushing, especially Davis and Tavai. Then it's 2 guys whose names I really kept thinking that we'd stop hearing. And that's Jalen Reeves-Maben and Miles Killigrew. Killebrew, because neither guy has progressed in a meaningful way since their rookie year. Now, I mean, they're both just going into their third year, so either guy could turn it around big time. But we had high hopes for both of them going into last year, and both of them just completely disappeared in this defense.
Right.
They weren't useful for what we wanted. I don't know. It's definitely a situation. Then we've got Steve Longa, who is a special teams guy. Like, that's almost entirely why that there is. And Malik Carney, who I've actually been hearing some decent things about. But he seems like he's, got some pass rushing ability.
But
this is the situation where this team will likely be watching and waiting for other teams to cut linebackers. And it would not be surprised to see even 2 guys brought in from other teams and take not starting roles, but definitely backup roles.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Okay, good stuff.
Last. Sorry. We got the defensive backs.
I wasn't going to let you take a breath. You just keep going.
All right. So,
we're
10
cutting
defensive
Tracy
backs.
Walker. We're cutting Darius Slay. Coleman's going to be our number 1 cornerback, and we're bringing Glover Quinn back. Is that what I read?
Sure. Yep, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
So we've got Darius Slay, Rashawn Melvin, Justin Coleman, Jamal Agnew, Amani Arawarie, Quandre Diggs. I've gotten really good at saying his name, by the way. Amani Arawarie. Tracy Walker, Will Harris, Charles Washington, Tavon Wilson.
After that dog meme they sent me about me, I had to really practice it.
That leaves out 2 notable names, Tease and Mike Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we keep hearing about Tease, mostly positive things coming out of the offseason about Tease, but then again, that's not game day stuff.
And today he looked good, and Coleman didn't look good today. So just
I'm not concerned about Coleman though. Like an off day for a guy like him on first day camp, that really doesn't concern me at all.
Nope, he's good.
But a guy like Charles Washington, or even possibly Tavon Wilson, could be. Even possibly Jamal Agnew, if he doesn't return, to form, now that he's back fully from injury. Those are the guys who those 2 and the rest of the guys whose names, CJ Moore, I think, is the only other one on there that I've even heard before, who have a possibility of taking that. So I don't think there's a ton of flexibility there, but there will be. It's kind of down to Charles Washington, Tease Tabor, and Mike Ford. I think that's the big battle there. One of those 3 guys will make it, and the others probably won't.
Okay, very, very interesting. So, Rodgers, it's not. I don't want to say it's not that he doesn't have an inside scoop, because he does have more information than most people.
Oh shit! I forgot to mention Ryan Santoso.
Oh yeah. Oh my God! Hold on.
I just watched Chris's desk.
Ryan Santoso.
When is Santoso Day at training camp?
Every day is Santoso Day at training camp. I'm telling you. Look, I'm glad Sam Martin came back strong. I love Sam Martin. He's a great guy. But man, the stuff that Santoso was pulling off last year was pretty incredible. And look, I know I don't even know that Martin was a lock last year. Actually, I mean, it would be like a William Clay move.
Battle,
right. I mean, it looked in camp. Everything I saw, Santoso outplayed Martin, and I know Andy. When we were standing there watching Martin kick, the cursing that he was doing, he was screwing up. I mean, he was in his own head. I was like, wow. And then seeing what Santoso was doing was. It was good. He's dang good. I mean, you talk about just on the ability to back up on field goals. He was from the sideline at the 50-yard line, banging it through the skinny posts. I'm like, come on, this guy, he's got it. He's a backup for Prater, and he's your punter. You got it nailed. Let's go. And he's gorgeous.
Yeah, he definitely looked better than Martin in practice.
Yeah,
that's for sure. But. Hard to say with that sort of thing. I'm no kicking expert, but he definitely looked good.
I've been kicked out of a lot of places, so I got a little bit of expertise. All right, I want to ask you, Sam, man, and this is a little bit of a surprise question, so you don't have to have an answer. But what's your most controversial cut? If you think from the roster, the 90-man roster, who do you think is the one that's the most controversial that's not going to make the team?
That's pretty good. I think if I had to choose somebody that if they were cut, I would be shocked, but also not shocked by, it would probably be A'Shaun Robinson.
Whoa! Wow. Okay, that is good. Wow, that's a good one. That is a good one because I can see it, right? I mean, I can envision that scenario. But I
mean, if Mike Daniels can get cut in Green Bay, A'Shaun Robinson can get cut in Detroit. Maybe we sign Mike Daniels and cut A'Shaun Robinson.
Maybe that's what that Instagram thing was. They were saying he's too old to play. Maybe it was fortunate.
I think he came on last year, but I don't know how good of a fit he is in Patricia's defense. They're looking for Deshaun Hand type guys that can play, 5 tech, 7 tech.
Mm-hmm.
And A'Shaun is kind of like, he's not quite a nose tackle. He's not quite a 3 tech. He's kind of a weird tweener that in a 4-3 front, you can move him around and hope he wins his battles. And he did pretty good for us last year, but they also showed signs of not really liking him that much.
Giving him love,
I don't have a lot of, I don't have any inside information. Let me come out and say that.
He was mad for a while.
He didn't start the season active. He wasn't active, I think, for the first 2 or 3 games.
Yeah. He had to earn his role, which was unexpected, but
Yeah, he's a second round.
He did.
Yeah, he earned his role for sure, but at the same time, at the same time, he missed practice today for an unknown reason. It could be completely legit. It could be another thing where we heard a lot about players not being super happy with how things were going with Patricia. For all we know, he's one of the last holdovers of that, where he really just is unhappy here, and people like press have said that he's impossible to talk to. He's super grumpy all the time.
Right.
Shocking. He doesn't look like that at all.
No, he looks like grandma. This is a really interesting. I mean, like I said, shocking. You nailed it. I would not have pulled that name out myself and thought about it, but as you make the case, it's like, wow. And look, I'm no dupe, right? You're not just going to convince me of silly shit, but that you can make a decent case there. Very, very good. I'm thinking Brandon Powell, right? I know because a lot of people like him and shit, right? But wow, A'Shaun. Agnew's he's coming off the injury. This mega points on the game where the points don't matter. You've got the most, Sandman. Yeah, that was a killer take right there. Wow. All right, really quick. You're getting all your stuff. You're around shopping. Nobody goes out. Nobody likes people anymore. I hate people. You hate people too. You don't want to go. Yes. Other than the training camp party, that's the right kind of people though. But be a xenophobe and hang out at our party. No, shopping is different, and than it used to be. I've been using Amazon since 1998. I'll have you know. I just saw that on my Amazon thing. I was one of the earliers, but. That's the place to go. That's where you do. I know that's where I do almost all of my shopping. I'm not running around town. That's a waste of my time and energy. I just hit the Amazon. You go amazon.detroitlionspodcast.com. It's the easiest way to hit to Amazon. Amazon.detroitlionspodcast.com. It's the easiest way to support the show when you do your shopping at Amazon. They give us a little kickback. Never costs you anything more. It takes a little bit of the money out of Bezos' pocket. He doesn't need it. He's not SpaceX. He's wasting his money. Right? So send it over to the podcast. The boys you appreciate over here and help us out. Amazon.detroitlionspodcast.com. Anytime you go there, they'll take you straight to the site and help the show out by doing something you were going to do anyway. All right. Good story that Sandman brought with him when we were doing the 5-minute show prep we do. Kyle Mankey did a story in M Live about Matt Patricia making adjustments this year. Tap on this. Do a double click on this for us, Sam, and let folks know what's in that article, because it's a really, really well written article that brings a lot of great points to the fore.
Yeah, and last year you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. I was, I think it was off air, but I was kind of down on the team early last year. Like I saw
you were in a place
at training camp. I saw it. Like it just was a feeling. Like you walk into a haunted house, you feel the ghosts. That's kind of how training camp felt for me. I walked in, it just, something wasn't right.
I got to tell you, I was asking myself, what the fuck's up with Andy? Jesus. Is he having a bad time? We had a great time there. Oh, I was seeing some good stuff. I mean, there was things that were like, oh, that's not right. That seems weird. But overall, it's just training camp. It didn't seem like it was broken, but you were sounding the siren. You just bam on that button alarm, right? And I was like, God, Andy, chill pill, brother. They make Xanax. Let's get through this. But you were right. You were dead right. That Jets game, I was like, wow.
We were all like, wow,
he's a visionary.
So this Kyle Menke article actually talks about how Patricia is learning from some of his year one mistakes, and some of the mistakes that he made was personnel mistakes, not in who to sign, when to sign, but more in how to treat the players, how they would react to the way that he was treating them. How hard he was on them initially, kind of came in hot, which, you can argue is good or bad long term. But short term, early on, it was a problem. And, Patricia doesn't straight come out and say that, but he definitely says that they looked at everything at the end of the year and, how he ran his meetings, which, reports were that he was perpetually late to. How he ran practice, didn't sit well with everybody. And I think he kind of realized at the end of the year that, this isn't I tell you exactly what to do and you have to do it. These are grown men that are, used to things being a certain way. And sometimes it's hard to ease people into your way of doing it. Mm-hmm. But, this article kind of goes over all of that and how, to quote Patricia, training camp was definitely one of those. I don't know if there will be any major or will be anything major from a standpoint that you'll notice, but a lot of little things. And I think that's exactly what he was struggling with, was the little things. Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited to see, when we get out to training camp live this year, it opened up today being Thursday, whenever this comes out on Friday, probably.
It'll be tonight,
tonight. I love it. To see in person how it feels, because like you said, and like I was saying, I felt it early last year. Yeah. There was a feeling there. So I'm excited. All the players are saying the right things. I think that there was a time where the team was filled with potential Caldwell holdovers that really had a hard time with an authoritarian coming in. I think Quinn was one of those guys. Mm-hmm. We just mentioned Ashawn maybe is one of those guys. We don't know. But Quinn was definitely one of those guys, and now he's retired. I think he's finally getting the roster to the point. He's bringing in his own guys. Ricky Jean Francois, might come back again.
Yeah, they talked to
Flowers.
Yeah, I saw that they were talking to him.
Yeah, Flowers. So I think, you bring in hard-nosed people to play hard-nosed football, and you get hard-nosed coaching, and that's expected. Mm-hmm. So I think, things are trending upward in that way. So I'm excited to see how it actually looks.
And for a coach that has been in his prior lives as a defensive coordinator, renowned for his ability to adjust and to play to the weaknesses of his opponent, right? And to capitalize on them. You see that it truly is who he is as a man, he is as a person. He evaluated himself. I mean, and how hard is it to be to evaluate yourself difficult, in a critical way. In that self-awareness is one of the most difficult things for people to master, and the fact that he's done that, and again, day one at camp, whatever, but a lot of people I've heard from who've had access to him and have talked to him have seen a change from him, and that's a lot of credit, and it goes to exactly saying he is exactly who we thought he is as far as the adjustment coach, and nothing is out of bounds to get adjusted, changed, and fixed to make it better. So Meinke's article is excellent on this, but I think that's really what it the takeaway is that we have a coach here who will change anything to make the team better, and nothing is off the table, and that's a really, really good thing in my mind. All right, Case, anything on you want to get Kyle? Say anything bad about Kyle? Get him on your bad side too, or
yeah. Your mom makes a bad meatloaf.
Ooh, tough stuff right there. That's tough stuff. Okay.
Your shorts and your socks don't match.
Ooh.
You're ugly and your mother dresses you funny.
Well, we'll give what I hope to get.
Apparently, in my mind, Kyle lives with his mother. So,
what I hope to get video of at training camp is Kyle and Justin dragging Case up the new hill. And maybe down it a little bit, right?
Pushing me down it.
Yeah, there you go. So let's talk about that. There's a hill. They talked about it today. It's they wear climbing gear when they're on it. It's super, super steep. They pulled it right out of Michigan Speedway and dropped it in there in the end zone in the practice field. This is I mean, they're going to have to wear oxygen at the top of this hill. It's so big, right?
I think with Patricia now being cart bound, I don't know if the cart has enough torque to get up to the top of the hill. They're going to have to put in one of those old people stair lifts, carry him up the top and yell at the players.
Can you imagine the transfer from the cart to the chairlift?
Hover around. Yeah.
I worked in a nursing home, man. I've seen those transfers. It's not a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, they thought you'd be more mobile when they hired you. Who knew? Anyway, right. Yeah. So they've got the Patriots hill, and obviously he's lost the team already. They showed up for training camp, saw the hill. Oh my God, we're gonna have to run. Team is gone. Right? It's another lost year because Patricia's lost the team. So the hill will kill. Another last thing to talk about on the podcast front, and one of the reasons we did keep the announcement so short. We had a lot of things we had to cover in this kind of realm. You're looking for tickets, you're not just football tickets, but they're good ones too. Baseball, hockey, concerts, you name it, any kind of tickets you want. Hit tix.detroitlionspodcast.com, tix.detroitlionspodcast.com. It takes you over to SeatGeek where you can pick your own seat. That way someone else doesn't pick it for you. And you can go to your event, find the seat you want for the price you want, and go there. Great prices. And like all the rest of the stuff, it's a great way to support the show by doing something you were going to do anyway. Tix.detroitlionspodcast.com works anywhere in the United States. It doesn't matter where you live. Get your tickets there and help us out. All right, last piece. You alluded to it a little bit earlier, Casey Basie. That's from his old freestyling days. Around the division with Mike Daniels. Why don't you go ahead and take us there? Around the division.
Calm down.
Okay.
No, actually, we're not doing a full around the division this week. I don't have enough to talk about with the Vikings and the Bears, so we'll stick to the big news. And as soon as we start getting more training camp news coming out about everybody, then we'll reinstate the weekly around the division stuff and dig into that, which is always one of my favorite things to do.
Awesome.
However, so the one piece of news: Packers unexpectedly cut defensive tackle Mike Daniels. It was a bit of a surprise, and with any cut like this, you can always find people who will say, oh, I saw that coming. I saw that coming. But I think
coming.
in this particular instance, I think the vast majority of Packers fans and media were caught a little bit off guard. It wasn't that they didn't see the writing on the wall for Daniels long term. He's getting older. He was hurt last year. He's 30. They like the group they have behind him, etc. But I mean, he's still a very good player and very productive player. So I do think that it came as a big shock. And now they save about $9-10 million this year from cutting him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not insignificant and something they're going to want to roll over to next year where they weren't sitting on a large amount of cap space. So it will give them more flexibility next year also. And, I think they're trying to approach a win now mode, I don't think they're willing to go 100% all in right this moment. They might be willing to do that next year.
Yeah. And that's part of the thing, right? They were always so renowned for drafting well and not doing the free agency thing,
not playing free agency,
right? And that's going to change now with the new regime. And
they have to make the most out of
capologist. God, I hope they do. Just destroy that team. For years.
They have to make the most out of Rodgers' remaining years.
Yep.
Right.
So.
Yep, they're on a time frame for sure.
Yeah.
So I like I say, if they didn't feel like this year was their year, but next year might be, that may have been why they did this move.
Yep, no question about it. All right, so he's around. Oh, wait, sorry. There's the absolute question that comes up. Whoa, hey, Packers cut Mike Daniels. Should we get him? Should we pick him up?
Sandman, you have any thoughts?
I think that we're probably fine up front. I don't know. Like you said, Mike Daniels was injured last year, and he's a fantastic player, but I don't know if he's versatile enough for Patricia's defense. I think if they brought him in, I definitely wouldn't be upset about it. Obviously not at the price tag that he was released for. But I think some other team will snag him up before we even get the opportunity to look at him. I think he's just outpriced for us.
I think you're right on all fronts.
Yeah, that's great. All right, with that, really quick, just want to reiterate, hit that party, get your tickets for the training camp party. It is a riot. You're going to have a great time, and we want to see you there. I love meeting all the people that listen to the show, right? I mean, talking to you guys and spending time and hanging out is absolutely ideal. It's one of my favorite time. It's one of the things that makes this my favorite time of the year. Party.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. That's where the tickets are. Head on over there and spend some time. Again, don't be worried to come alone. You can come out, and there's a lot of people there that are on their own. You make some friends fast, and Case, he's ready to be loved by everyone. So there you go. Remember, we're looking for your involvement in the show. Head up the subreddit, give us your feedback, and we take it all seriously. We listen to you and we have those conversations. So don't be afraid to use that. We appreciate the constructive feedback. Also, don't forget about us on Patreon, patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. Get access to that Slack chat, and I'm not even kidding. And I think Sandman, Case, Noah is part of it. Most intelligent chat you're going to find about the Lions anywhere on the internet. For as little as $1 a month on Patreon, you can get access to that, and we appreciate anything more than that, but get yourself some good stuff out of that. Also, check us on Facebook, facebook.com/The Detroit Lions Podcast, facebook.com/The Detroit Lions Podcast, and follow us on the Tweeter Bleeder at DET Lions Podcast, DET Lions Podcast, the very best place to see Case
taking an ice bath.
Oh, that's not bad. Give us a call on Skype. Detroit Lions Podcast is the account. All one word, Detroit Lions Podcast. Or call us on the Lions line at 929-33-LIONS. It's 929-335-4667. We'll get you on the show. And make sure to go to DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Subscribe to the podcast. You can do it at iTunes, Google Play, anywhere else. But that'll get you to the one you want to go to. But by subscribing, we will show up in your audio player automatically. Thank you for tuning in, and we're going to see you next time on the Detroit Lions Podcast. Remember, no pants, no toasters, no hot tubs, no problems, baby, because we're your Detroit Lions and Reddit connection.